So the new season of Black Mirror has dropped, and the first episode was Rivermind. That's what this video is going to be on because it was a lot of fun. It covered a lot of neuro topics, what does it mean to be human, and some ethical questions. And so let's just jump in with this notion of a neural interface. So, of course, if you haven't seen the episode, you might want to check it out first because I'm going to give a lot away in this video. Can we interface? And well, some people would say, yeah. I haven't followed exactly what's going on with the science of this, but in principle, it should work. Because the brain itself is an on-off machine. Neurons, the information processing cells, they either fire or they don't. And this is the way they communicate their information with other neurons. And of course, this is the way a computer works. A computer is an on-off system. It has two states. But by combining this in a lot of different complex ways, it's able to represent anything that it wants, including the video that you're watching. But there is an interesting story, Daniel Dennett, and I read this back as an undergrad, in The Mind's Eye. And it talks about someone who partied a little too much, killed off some brain cells, and goes into the doctor complaining about a terrible headache. And the doctor says, no problem, we have the artificial neuron, and I'm just going to replace those neurons that you killed with artificial neurons. And the patient feels instantly better. Leaves the office, but comes back again after a rough night and says, I have a terrible headache again. Again, the doctor replaces all those killed off neurons with fresh artificial neurons. Does this over and over and over again. And one time has a particularly indulgent night and comes back to the doctor saying, I feel fine. I thought this was really strange because, I don't have a headache. I feel good. And the doctor says, well, you don't have any more biological neurons. We've replaced them all with computer replicas, these artificial neurons, and that's why you feel fine. So you go with that story and you say, because one or two, you're like, okay, maybe. But what if the whole system gets replaced? Well, in principle, the whole system could be replaced because these neurons are simply on-off systems. It doesn't make it real. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It just means possibly it could. And when we talk about the experiences the character had, she was able to enhance her sensations of pleasure. And while I was watching this, I couldn't help but to think of a quote from Alan Watts when he said, yeah, we can elevate our pleasure, but there's no way to elevate pleasure without also elevating pain. And so it remains to be seen if you can just elevate it in one direction. And of course, we know certain drugs will enhance our experiences. And so there's no reason why you couldn't do that artificially with some kind of computer-based chip. But when we look at computers, we say, well, these are for entertainment, maybe information. But one of the things the episode brought up is how often these are used for ads. And ads do go back a way if you look at the history of advertisement, but they've become so much more popular now. Now, you might remember back in the 80s, if you went into a bookstore and you opened up like a magazine, all these ads would just fall out. And now, of course, these are all digital. And so in a serious way, I mean, there's ads that play even during my videos now. And so what's the purpose of this video? Is it really the content of the video, or was it for you to see those ads? Because we definitely are trying to fit this in everywhere. And you might remember, too, back in the 80s where there was this thing called cable. And the idea is you buy the cable, and then there's no ads. And then they kind of slipped the ads into the cable. And so they were showing how, the purpose of this sort of changed from saving her life to turning her into an ad machine. And so, like I said, there's ads now on this channel. But to be fair, I have almost 400 videos, and I kind of did a little math on it, and I've made almost $200 now on YouTube. And I'm not complaining because I'm just doing this for fun, but that turns out to something like 50 cents a video. So anyway, where I'm going with this is that you might have noticed in the episode that she was unconscious while she was doing the ad. And I thought that was a neat trick because so many of us go unconscious when we see the ad. And think about, how this was what happens to me. I don't know if it happens with everyone. I don't have the data, but whenever an ad is on, you just look down to how long do I've got to skip, and you go 3, 2, and then you're just waiting so you're totally unconscious. And it was interesting when she was becoming the advertisement, she was unconscious the whole time. And And I'm not against ads. Ads, it's easy to be against them until it's advertising your product. And so I get offers all the time where someone wants me to use my YouTube channel to like advertise like kitchen utensils. Chicken utensils would be really strange. But it wasn't a good ending, and that's where I want to get to the real kind of meat of this video. And at the end, they kept doing upgrades and requiring her to do upgrades, and they couldn't afford it. And so this company, kind of the nasty side of the company, was more obvious. But what it was really doing is, that bureaucratic machine. And there's a phrase, bureaucratic machine, because it's just inhuman. And they have become really inhuman and turned her into something inhuman. So what we see at the very end, her husband, creating a scene that was extremely close to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which it's the whole story, is pitting our humanity versus the machine. And if you remember the final scene when R.P. McMurphy had really upset Nurse Ratched, and she had him lobotomized as punishment, and he's just sitting there. His humanity was lost, just like the character in Rivermind. And so he does what he thinks is, the other character, Chief, does what he thinks is the ethical thing and smothers him with a pillow. So that scene there, I just can't help wondering if they were not thinking of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But there's so many other places in literature and film where our humanity goes up against the machine. And so when you think of Star Wars, you think of Luke and how we all wanted him to turn off the computer to blow up the Death Star. Use your feelings, not the computer. If you've never seen the 80s movie War Games, it's got a lot of really cool philosophical things one could ponder. But there's a line here from the general. Or actually, someone's talking to the general, who's making a huge decision about escalating war. And he's, General, you're listening to a machine. Do the world a favor and don't act like one. So not very complimentary to the machines, right? Use your humanity. I've seen, this is The Matrix, of course, one of the classics, again, humans versus machines. I've seen an agent punch through a concrete wall. Men have emptied entire clips at them and hit nothing but air. Yet their strength and speed are based in a world that is built on rules. Because of that, they'll never be able to be as strong or as fast as you can be. Based on rules. And so our humanity kind of slips in between the rules. We're the anomaly. Neo was the anomaly. So, in the end, it is a great, I don't know, it was an hour, but it brought up some of the classic moments of, humans versus machines, and how do we save our humanity. And it is very possible that thought could be digital. Thinking, maybe it is the result of neurons in the skull. And maybe that is why artificial intelligence gives the appearance of thought, reasoning, calculation. But the point is, really the point of me doing this video, is that consciousness isn't digital. It's more that consciousness is found in the space between information.